Hello everybody. Today we shall work out the November 2014 paper 1. The text is displayed here on the screen along with the questions. I shall read, highlight and sometimes annotate the text so that it is at the same time a revision along with the model answer that I will give you. I will also comment on the do's and don'ts so that you are better prepared for the exams. So without much ado, let's start with the reading. In their research, sociologists will often ask questions in order to find out information and test hypotheses. What is a hypothesis? It is a supposition that is made by a researcher that is later verified in a research. The research will prove the hypothesis to be either true or not. Remember that a hypothesis is made by a positivist. A positivist is a sociologist who is interested in collecting quantitative data. This can be done by selecting research methods like questionnaires and surveys. Let me remind you that a questionnaire can contain both open and closed questions. A positivist will choose closed questions as it produces quantitative data. In closed questions, respondents will answer by choosing from multiple answers given to them. It's mostly like a multiple choice questions that you have very likely come across. On the other hand, an interpretivist who would make use of a questionnaire would go for open questions as it allows respondents to answer freely their opinions on the blank spaces provided in the questionnaire. Open-ended questions produces qualitative data. Now let's continue. A popular method used for doing this is questionnaires or surveys. A questionnaire consists of a series of written questions that can be either open or closed. Positivist sociologists tend to prefer closed questions, whereas interpretivists will opt for open questions instead. Using questionnaire means a large sample can be researched if a suitable sampling frame can be found. This sentence needs explanation. So yes, questionnaires being relatively cheap and convenient to be distributed to thousands of people across a country will allow the researcher to choose a large sample. A sampling frame is a document that contains the names of individuals of the population. An example is an electoral register or a telephone directory. Remember that sometimes a sampling frame can be difficult to obtain. Let's move on now to the text. If a stratified sample is used, then representative data can be collected and generalizations can be made. Recall that a sample is a group of people that is chosen out of a population. There are several ways of selecting a sample. Snowball sample is used when no sampling frame exists. Random sample includes simple random and stratified random sample. In a stratified random sample, the characteristics of the population is represented. In this way, this sample method is more representative of the population. Subsequently, it becomes easier to make generalization, that is, to make inferences based on the findings of the researcher. Questionnaires typically produce quantitative data, and in this way are similar to structured interviews and official statistics. That is true, since a structured interview is like a questionnaire, but which is administered by an interviewer. Similarly, official statistics come from questionnaires containing closed questions that are administered by government officers. Now let's attempt the first question. What are open questions? Be careful not to reproduce the words stated in the text, like here, for instance, it is used by interpretivists. You should make it clear to the examiner that open questions means that respondents have the freedom to express exactly their opinions. At this point, however, you shall secure only 1 mark. In fact, you should equally show to the examiner what makes an open question different to a closed question. For example, here by stating that there is no preset. So I repeat, there is no preset answers given to respondents. These 2 arguments altogether will then give you your full mark. So typically for this question, the examiner expects an answer like this. You may choose to pause the video in order to copy the answer if you wish. Now let's move on to question number 2. Here you're required to define the term sampling frame. You should not confuse between a sample and a sampling frame, though there is a link between both. A sample is chosen from a sampling frame. This should be clear to you. So a sampling frame is the source where the names of the people in the population are found. In a school, for example, the names of students will appear on the school register, and this might be here the sampling frame. A model answer to this question would be, it is the source from where the sample is taken from. It could be a document like an electoral register from where the names of people are found. You will notice here that an example of sampling frame gives the candidate the 2nd mark to this question. That's very important for you to note. Question B now asks the candidate to describe one strength and one limitation of using a large sample in sociological research. This question carries 4 marks, and by identifying one strength, the candidate will secure only 1 mark, and any development of this identification of argument will allow 1 additional mark. Same applies to the limitation, so that full mark is obtained. You might be aware that a large sample has many strengths. One is that it allows more accurate data, as more respondents means that the sample is more representative of the population. This provides more room for generalization. It equally increases validity of the findings. Another strength is that large sample usually involves quantitative research. This implies that these data can be more reliable as they can be checked against other similar researchers and comparisons made to eventually identify trends. One limitation, however, is that a larger sample means more costly research. Eventually, this might fail the research if there is shortage of funds. Additionally, you might have already thought about how a large sample means that the research becomes more time-consuming. A good answer for this question may look like this. You can pause the video in order to copy this answer if you wish. Do know that for the exams, to be more efficient, please keep your answers within limits. For example, here, for a question of 4 marks, keep your answers within 8 lines. That is going to be okay in terms of time management. Of course, now let's move on to question number C, okay, which is equally a question of 4 marks. And now you're asked to describe one advantage and one disadvantage of using official statistics in sociological research. The theme here is about official statistics. Here the distribution of marks is the same as the question above, that is part B. Let's recall that official statistics refers to figures that are produced by the government. Here we can refer to crime or unemployment statistics. A recent example includes the figures produced by the different governments on the number of people infected and those died from COVID-19. Official statistics is collected often on the whole population and is highly reliable and valid. But you have learned that it might not be totally useful to the researcher, as it might not be what the researcher requires. So one good answer might appear as follows. Here again, I'm not going to read the answer, but remember that half of the answer will give it's about one advantage and the other half is about one disadvantage. You write words like however, on the contrary, as opposed, or in the opposite, in order to distinguish between the advantage or disadvantage. There are so many ways you can write this, but make it clear to the examiner that you're switching from the advantage to the disadvantage. So use those words like however and to make this contrast. So that's all for now. We have attempted part A, B, C. So stay tuned for the next video that will come. And till then, I say goodbye and I'll see you later.